evening. I'd like to call the Plainville Planning and Zoning Commission's May 26, 2026 meeting to order. First item on the agenda is roll call, and we have a full commission tonight. Before we begin, there is a change. There is an agenda item. Let's see, where are we? For item number 4 under public hearings. And item number 5 under unfinished business, we received a request to withdraw the application for the public hearing and for the special exception for the deposition of earth material. And that was relevant to PZ04/26, number 15, for both of those items. So if there's anyone that was here to speak at that public hearing, the applicant withdrew that application. So there will not be a hearing for that. Okay. Okay, moving on to item number 2, workshop session, POCD, proposed revisions referred to CROG and the town council. And we had the zoning text revisions, 2025 Housing Law Special Session Act 25-1 HB.8002. Discussion and public hearing is set for the June 9th, 2026 meeting.
So tonight, you all received in your package a draft for the new text amendments. Your copies you have 2 different copies, one being the original, which is one that doesn't have notes on it, and the one that was included in your package has notes on it. This particular text amendment is, it's drafted to be consistent with the House Special Session Act 25-1, which we've been talking about on and off for the last month or so. That's basically some new housing regulations that are related to, by right, individuals have, if they're proposing something between 2 and 9 units, that anywhere where residential is approved in your regulations, they have a right to do that. And that your only recourse is a summary decision and some latitude in regards to architectural elements that are present on the building. Tonight, we have a representative from Tyke Planning and Policy Group. They're our representative or our consultant in regards to planning and zoning. Robin, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Hi, Robin. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Robin will go over what they've developed as a regulation changes. Basically, it's some changes in your business zone, section 2.0. It's Article 2, 2.0. There's sections in there that anywhere you had mixed use allowed, now you have to have what is called middle housing. That's the term that is in the law. And Robin will review the matters with you, and then you can ask questions in regards to that. The first section of the first section is regulation changes. The regulation changes are mandatory. There's no wiggle room. These are by law. The other section, the back half section, is more architectural review, which is something that you have discretion on adding or not adding. So with that, I'll let Robin explain what the proposed changes are.
Sure, I'm gonna see if I can share my screen with you guys. If you can let me know, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what's in your packet, and just by way of background, John gave a great introduction. In November, Public Act 25-1 was passed in a special session and signed by the governor, and basically it mandates that you must allow 2 to 9 unit residential developments in any commercial or mixed-use zoning district. These regulations must be passed and adopted effective by July 1st. If they aren't effective July 1st, someone can come in and propose this. And the downfall is you would not have regulations in place regarding design elements and other necessary standards that you would want in place for that. So going through, the first thing you'll see is we added on the code legend the term summary review. This is a term that's used in the Public Act. It is not a site plan approval, though as we go through, we've set it up similar to a site plan approval. Going down under your permitted principal uses and structures from your table, mixed use commercial or residential uses, we have essentially updated your table to reflect the changes that were in that act, taking out the special permit process for 1 and 2 bedroom dwelling units and putting in middle housing for summary review as your review process. I did make a change for condominium and multifamily developments. You had over 9 units. To be consistent with the act, we just added 10 or more units since 9 units is covered under the middle housing definition. Dimensional standards, I didn't change anything here, but there is a footnote. Minimum lot area and frontage do not apply to applications for middle housing developments. In the statute, the language is that it can be on any lot zoned commercial or mixed use. So I just put a footnote there so that it's explicitly in there. This would not be for someone who wanted to subdivide a parcel to do middle housing. This would be if you have an existing lot that might be non-conforming to your current standards and is vacant, they would be able to put middle housing on that. Is there any question about that?
Did everyone have any questions?
No? Okay. The next are your dimensional requirements, your minimum yard requirements. So the 3 zoning districts, this would generally apply to our central commercial, general commercial, and your technology park. Though it's my understanding it's probably not likely to be seen in your technology park. It is included because it is considered a commercial zone. You guys currently have these highlighted standards for your front yard, side yard, and rear yards. The question for you is, do you want to just maintain these setback requirements for the middle housing units? Or would you like to develop new front, side, and rear yards for those types of developments?
What does everyone think?
Keep it the way it is.
Keep it the way it is?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll keep it the way it is.
Okay, that works. Moving on, you have maximum building limitations. This is your height, your stories, and your maximum building coverage and percentage. Your height is pretty tall for your 3 commercial zones, and central commercial, you don't have a maximum building coverage percentage. You do for the other 2. You can have separate limitations. There is a blank box when we get further down for these. Or you can maintain them as they are. I don't think you're gonna see a 9-unit residential, housing development be 60 feet tall. So I'm not sure there's much concern there, but completely up to you if you guys, again, would like to draft new height, stories, or building coverage percentage for middle housing.
What does everyone think?
I think just for safety.
I'll put your mic on. Yeah, sorry.
I think just for safety, we should lower the height in the central commercial zone. I doubt it would happen either, but why take a chance?
Where do we want to lower it to?
Well, I would say, the central commercial zone's kind of in the airport's flight path. So I don't know how that plays into it, but, I think 4 stories is the most, so wherever that would be in height.
40, 45 feet thereabouts.
Same as general commercial was saying, that maybe, yeah. Like I said, I don't think anyone's gonna build a 64 either, but why take the chance someone might want to?
So just make it the same as the general commercial, 45?
That sounds more reasonable to me.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is that a consensus?
Yeah.
So we'll make it 45 feet instead of 60?
Okay.
Robin, if I could ask, just to be clear, in the case of
Yeah.
making a change like that, it would only apply, say, in the central commercial zone, to the extent someone was was doing a particular housing project. It would not,
Yes.
middle housing, it would not affect anything else.
Correct. So as we scroll down, you'll see what I did is there is a blank table underneath the building design elements for middle housing. I will fill those in with what you guys decide tonight, and this will remain as is in your regulations, so that this will apply for your commercial zones, for your commercial buildings. It will be different than what will be in the building design section for middle housing.
That makes sense?
And for the technology park, you guys are at 100 feet maximum. Did you want to reduce that to 45 as well, just in case?
I think so.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Anything further on this table?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Section 2.04 is your use regulations, and you currently have residential and mixed use. In reading over the language that was in here, it would not be compliant with Public Act 25-1. So I've changed the name to middle housing, and I have redlined all of what was in there, which was basically limiting how many units, where they could be located, the square footage, maximum square footage, all of that isn't allowed under the Public Act. So this is where your new middle housing section will live going forward. So the intent we just put in here is defined design requirements for middle housing as defined herein and when located in certain zones. Applicability are the zones we talked about, your central commercial, general commercial, and technology park. We do define middle housing as it's defined in the Act, in your regulation, just so that people understand where it's coming from. And just for clarity, in the Act, it's called Transit Community Middle Housing Developments. I did not use that term because I think it is confusing for most. Transit implies that it's associated with some kind of public transit, train, bus, etc. So it is called Transit Community Middle Housing Developments in the Act. We're just calling it middle housing developments in the regulation. But we did define it exactly as it is defined in the Public Act, so there's no confusion. When you get down to the review process, as I said, it has to be what is called summary review. There is not a lot of information in the Act about what summary review meant, other than you cannot hold a public hearing, it cannot be a special permit, you cannot require a variance. Those are the specific pieces that were in the Act, but as far as what it meant and what you could allow is sort of vague. So we've set up a review process which is sort of similar to what you would see for a site plan review. There's going to be an application, there's going to be a site plan that shows you property lines, existing and proposed structures, parking, lighting, utilities, setbacks, and landscaping. They're going to require an erosion and sedimentation control plan, building elevations because we do have design elements, floor plans, and a stormwater management report. So these are the sort of basic entities when you're looking at what you guys need as a commission to make sure their public health and safety is met when someone's submitting an application. And so we're hoping that these are gonna obviously meet whatever standards may come out in the future if they do more updates. But these, in my opinion, are the minimum you need to review something. As I indicated, B is basically from the statute. It says you have to evaluate these through summary review. Such developments shall be permitted without the need to obtain a special permit, variance, or conduct a public hearing. But it remains the applicant's responsibility to demonstrate that all standards established herein have been met. This is important because I'm sure, as you know, even if it was a site plan before you, you would have the right to hold a public hearing. And in this case, you do not have the right to hold a public hearing. C is also from the statute. If upon review, the commission determines that an application would have a substantial adverse impact on public health or safety, and that such impact cannot be adequately mitigated through modifications to the application, the commission may deny the application. This is sort of vague. It's basically telling you to try to mitigate through modifications. If it's something that is public health or safety related, this reg in the act does not preclude them from meeting your, they have to have adequate water, adequate sewage, septic, all of that. So this is probably a very small window to be able to deny. For the most part, these are going to be as of right developments. Any questions on these before we get into the design requirements?
Any questions?
Would safety include parking?
So we're gonna get to parking, and the answer is no, because they also adjusted parking requirements in this bill.
So I guess that gray area is what, is gonna be potentially challenging, I think, for all of us.
Yeah.
So is there any intent in the future to help define what would fit into an adverse impact on public health or safety?
I think that unfortunately, the way we're going to find this out is going to be through lawsuits. It's going to be towns who deny a development that then go to court, and a judge is going to determine on a case-by-case basis what the, adverse impact on public health or safety is. There was a bill that unfortunately just didn't make it all the way through this past session that just ended in May, that was trying to define a little bit better some of these issues. It didn't unfortunately get passed. I think it went past the House, but not the Senate. So it sort of died there. I do anticipate, next year we'll probably see another bill that will update some of the questions that were left lingering in this one. But for now, this is just the general information. And this is actually why it's very important to have these standards that we're about to go through, because it gives you guys, things that you can point to that they have to meet, instead of just leaving it open-ended, and not having a regulation on July 1st to look at. So I think that these design standards that we're gonna look at are gonna help you guys with that number C, public health or safety.
Thanks.
So then we get into the design requirements, and these are very prescriptive. You'll see as we go through, we talk about roof lines. So the roof of any building must be a pitched roof design, and then we say it may include gambrel, salt box, gable, or hip roof, as shown, and it's going to be on the next page. Flat roofs are prohibited. I'm going to stop there because some communities don't have a problem with flat roofs. A lot of our communities that we have written regulations for do. So I want to just pause and see, are you guys for or against flat roofs? Does it not matter one way or another to you?
It don't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It's the building owner's problem.
It's up to the building owner.
We've seen in historically larger buildings that were more commercialized or industrial, that in past, heavy storms of ice and rain combined, where there was an extensive amount of weight in other towns, we've seen them collapse. So,
Right.
but that's designed by, the individual designer, and it falls on the person who designed it, and insurance feels they're comfortable with it, and homeowners do.
So would you like me to remove the flat roofs are prohibited and leave it as a choice?
I'd say leave it as a choice.
Leave it as a choice.
Okay. All right. Moving down, this just gives some examples of what those look like. It does include a flat roof, so that someone can take a look at these. We go into acceptable roof materials. So we have acceptable roof materials includes 300 pounds per 100 square foot of roof area or better, dimensional asphalt, composite shingles, wood shingles and shakes, metal tiles, and standing seam slate, ceramic tiles, tar roofing. Tar paper roofing shall be prohibited. So just sort of calling out all the different types of acceptable roof materials. Again, trying to be very prescriptive for anybody that's coming in. Any questions on that before we move down?
No.
Permitted materials, so wall surfaces shall be brick, stone, clapboard siding, wood or foam material, shingles, wood or foam material, or board and batten, or any combination thereof. EIFS, exterior insulation or finish system, plywood, stucco, panelized surfaces shall be prohibited. Concrete, painted or non-painted, shall be prohibited except for exposed foundations of no more than 2 feet in height. So this is just trying to give material choices and saying what you would see and what you don't want to see.
Sounds good.
Okay? Landscaping, I'm not gonna read verbatim because you guys have it in front of you, but again, because you have to be very prescriptive, we did have to take a look at, saying how many shrubs per linear foot of wall length, what percentage is evergreens versus flowering shrubs, what size they needed to be, and so that's all contained in here in a very prescriptive way so that you at least get a very nicely landscaped property. We do include a landscape buffer, and I know I talked to John about this, where it says shall be provided when such development is adjacent to a commercial use. So this particular landscape buffer was written with the thought that if you have a vacant parcel in your commercial district that is flanked on both sides by commercial uses, and they're just going to build a 9-unit residential development, having a nice landscape buffer on the perimeter at least gives the people who will eventually live there some kind of buffer between them and the commercial uses. So this would not be on every development that you would see. It would just be for those limited circumstances where you might have a vacant parcel in the middle of 2 commercial parcels.
Is there a way to add in there that the landscape buffer must be maintained? Because we've had issues in the past where landscape buffers, trees die, et cetera, people cut through them, whatever. And it's hard for us to enforce, but if it's in there, then we don't have to really worry as much.
I can definitely add language for that.
Everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yep, I'll add that. And then I put in all plantings must be indigenous. I used indigenous because that's the word that's used in your regulations. Usually we have native, but I wanted to keep it consistent with what you guys use for terminology. Parking, I have no parking is allowed in the front or side yard on any lots. All parking areas between non-residential and residential uses must have the landscape buffer as defined above. So I know you probably have parcels where you currently have parking in the front, and obviously if there's like a reuse of that property, I'll share something with you after that I shared with John earlier today, which would allow you to give some relief from this regulation. This was written if somebody is coming in and developing a lot from the ground up, having the parking in the back is definitely more friendly than having all the parking, your sea of parking in the front of your developments. So that's what this is written for, and then we can review the relief valve, as I like to call it, if you're interested. So I caveat that with some communities don't want a relief valve from this regulation and are basically saying you can either meet these standards or you don't meet these standards. And you can certainly choose to go that route and not put a relief valve in, but we did want to give you the language to consider just in case.
Robin,
Any questions on that?
Robin, if I could, just a quick question on D1. Does that sentence read the way it's supposed to read?
No parking is allowed in the front or side yard on any lot. Yep, so they can't park in the front or side yard.
Yeah, what I have in front of me, it doesn't, unless there's a strike through I'm not seeing, it says no parking is not allowed.
Yes, so there are some minor updates to what I'm sharing with you on the screen.
Thank you.
One was my review. I'd like to go back and review a few times. And then 2 are comments that John and I went over that he had. So yes, that word was removed. So what you're seeing is the most recent draft. So the word not was taken out.
Thank you.
Yep. On to lighting. Again, I won't read all of this, but I do want to point out that John and I had talked about the color temperature in particular. So this was there was language in there, and it is changed on my screen from what is in front of you. That was from your current regulations. I wanted to try to keep stuff like lighting consistent so it's not different depending on what someone was developing. And one thing that John pointed out to me is the language you currently have in your regulations doesn't work. I guess the temperature, the color temperature is something that you can't find from any manufacturer, so we did change it. And it just says all light sources shall have a correlating color temperature of 3000 K or less, because that is a color temperature that they can find. So that will be different than what's on your page now, based on John and I talking about it. Any question about that? No? Okay. So this is where I'll fill in your dimensional requirements that we talked about, the height, stories, and building coverage that we previously discussed. As I said, it sits here by itself, so it can be different because it will be exclusive to your middle housing. And then 4 just says any conversion of existing buildings have to comply with the sections above. So, you know, if you have an existing building, they have to meet the design elements that are found in the regulation. Below, and I'm just going to scroll through these, we give building design examples. These are just examples. It's just so people can sort of have an idea of what, you know, some of these might look like. You know, a lot of people can't in their mind, like, what does a triplex look like or a multiplex? Cottage units are spelled out in the statute. And then we did what a commercial conversion might look like. And as you can see, there's one in the middle that does show parking remaining in the front, and then, you know, one that doesn't show parking remaining in the front. So this is just to give people who are looking to develop their sites ideas of what would comply with the standards that we wrote above this. You can keep these in or you can take them out. They're really just examples. They don't have any regulatory authority behind them as such, but at least it gives some, these are what we would prefer to see versus, you know, whatever they might come up with. Any thoughts on whether or not you want to keep them in or take them out?
So I guess the question is the photos that have the parking in the front, if we decide we don't want parking in the front, then those pictures shouldn't be in.
Yes, I will take them out if you decide not to do the relief standards that we'll talk about at the end. I can go in and change these. And since you guys decided flat roofs were okay, I do have some design illustrations I can put in of stacked flats and what those look like. So we'll add those in as well.
Thank you.
Anything else for that?
No.
No? Okay. G, where it says multiple structures, this was just taking out or two-family dwellings, because two-family dwellings fall under middle housing. So this will now just read, shall not be permitted on a lot occupied by a one-family dwelling. That's just a minor change to be consistent. And that's all of the standards for the middle housing. We'll talk about parking and then I'll change my screen so we can take a look at the relief section. But off-street parking, I think, is probably the thing that gives a lot of planning and zoning commissions a lot of concern. One of the big changes from the Public Act was that for 16 dwellings or less, technically it's less than 16 dwellings and more than 16 dwellings. They didn't talk about 16 dwellings, but for the sake of not leaving them hanging out here, we've done 16 or less. You can recommend parking requirements, but you may not require them. So I know that's a big change for most municipalities other than bigger cities who have parking maximums instead of parking minimums. So that's why you'll see it says recommended, not required. I'm not quite sure why it's showing, oh, these are all what you had in there. So 0 is required, and then I put in what's in the statute for over 16 units as recommended. So recommended 1 space per studio or 1 bedroom, recommended 2 spaces per 2+ bedrooms. Again, you can't require them, you can recommend them. And so I thought getting rid of all of it and just having 0 didn't make much sense to me, in most of the communities that we work in, because they're gonna need parking. And then you had special exception threshold. The parking now, there's no special exception. It's gonna be called a parking needs assessment, which I'll go into more in a minute. And it would not be required for 16 units or less. For over 16 units, the 2 spaces per family unit that you had, this should be redlined. I'm not quite sure why that's not, goes away. And the 1 space per studio or 1 bedroom and 2 spaces per 2+ bedrooms is what the language in the statute says. Or they can do what's called a parking needs assessment if under minimum parking spaces required. And then there's a footnote. And the footnote basically talks about what a parking needs assessment is. So it shall be paid by the proposed developer and shall include an analysis of available existing public and private parking that may be used by the residents, public transportation options that may be used by the residents that mitigate the need for off-street parking, projected future needs for off-street parking for such proposed development, and any relevant local traffic, parking, or safety studies. So it does provide the opportunity for them to say, well, we have this parking needs assessment that says we don't need the required parking, and you would have to evaluate that. Any questions on this one?
Any questions? No.
Okay. And so that's it for the reg changes. I'm just going to move over to, and hopefully it changed on your screen as well. Are you guys seeing relief from requirements?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So I shared this with John today as we were talking about, if you have conversions of buildings and they have parking in the front, or there's something about the facade or the roof of the building that wouldn't meet what we were asking them to do, we want to give them a way to go through the commission, and this would be by special permit. So because they're asking for a deviation from the regulations. So the language is consistent with what you would see for, special permit considerations, but designed to be specific to this regulation. So adjustments from the requirement is consistent with the relevant purpose and intent of the zoning regulations and the general purpose and intent of the plan of conservation and development. The adjustment will not have a substantial or undue adverse effect upon adjacent property or public health, safety, and general welfare, consistent with the language that I read to you above from the statute. The applicant demonstrates significant compliance with design standards above, and the reason for the request is not financial. The subject property contains a lawfully established existing building built prior to the effective date of this regulation. And when the type of relief requested pertains to a required roof type, the application for relief is accompanied by a statement from a professional engineer or licensed architect with documents the constraints, confirms the full compliance would require removal or full replacement of primary structural components, and outlines the proposed mitigation to be provided. So again, trying to give them a relief valve, trying to be as specific as possible, so that we also want to prevent them from going for variances. So if they can't meet the requirement, we don't want them to go to ZBA for everything. We want you guys to be sort of the driver of reviewing these, and that can be done through this regulation. And again, this is kind of up to you. This is, some communities are doing this and some communities are not doing this.
Thoughts?
Rather keep it here and go to ZBA.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
more consistent.
Your decisions.
So is the consensus that we want the relief?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So do you guys want to keep this?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, I will add this in to the regulation and send that over to John. And that's all of it. So unless there's something you guys have questions of or concerns about that you want me to take a look at, this is the draft that will go forward at your public hearing in June. And that's been referred out. So any final comments, questions, concerns?
Anything?
No.
I think just on parking, can someone come forward with a plan with virtually no parking, just street parking if it's in a transit or bus stop area?
They could. Yeah.
And if there's no parking on the street out front, who's responsible?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't think that the statute was well thought out to all municipalities. The one hope I have is that, a developer's not gonna build a 9-unit building with absolutely no parking and think that he can rent them out, especially if there's no transit available nearby. I know you guys do have some transit areas, bus availability, but I think it's still minimal when you look at the big scheme of things. So I'm hoping the parking won't be a big issue in a lot of towns because the developer's going to need it to rent. Most people drive. And I would think for 2 to 9 units, it's a very small build for a developer. They're going to want to provide that amenity for someone who is going to be renting those units.
I agree, it's an extreme example, but developments we have already, there's parking problems. Even with our probably over-the-top parking regulation, not over the top, but we have ample parking regulations. There's units in town that don't have enough parking even with our regulations. So I just think it could be a problem.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with you. Unfortunately, this is the way the statute was written. I think 16 units with no parking is a lot. There's no parking requirement, and they don't need to do a parking needs assessment. So anything 16 and under, there's going to be no requirement for it. So, when a developer comes in, because it won't necessarily be for middle housing, because that's 9 units or less, you can have a conversation with them about that, and while you can't deny it for lack of parking, hopefully you can come up with a middle ground with developers to persuade them to give you parking for a development if needed. Like I said, hopefully it won't be an issue and they'll see the value in providing parking, but unfortunately those that passed this bill thought for some reason parking wasn't going to be needed.
Any other questions or comments? No. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you guys.
Have a great rest of your night.
You too.
Thanks.
Thanks, Robin.
We can add that as a part of the stuff, right? Mandatory,
I don't know, probably.
right?
Might be able to.
All right.
All right, moving on to item number 3, we have public hearings. Item number 1 is PZ03/26, number 12, special exception for 87 East Street, LLC, 87 and Lot 17A East Street. Establish overall parameters for proposed PDD number 4, 87/17A East Street. This coincides with item number 2, PZ03/26, number 13, zoning regulation change, text amendment, also for 87 East Street, LLC, 87 and Lot 17A East Street, established text for proposed PDD number 4. And item number 3, PZ03/26, number 14, zoning map change, 87 East Street, Plainville, LLC, 87 and Lot 17A East Street, revised zoning map to establish proposed PDD number 4. And these 3 sections of the public hearing are being continued from April 28th of 26. Good evening, Attorney Galsky.
Good evening. William Galsky, 73 East Main Street, on behalf of the applicant. I'm going to give you a handout, a memorandum that I'm going to go through here tonight. Let's see.
We already got a copy.
So the first thing I just wanted to address with you was the issue about the acreage that came up at the last meeting. And the place that it was wrong was on the zone change application, which was a part 2. It was correct on the first page of the application and also in the text amendment. And I had sent a corrected version to Mr. Bossy earlier, but I'll give him another one now. And that's your second page in there where it just changes the area from 1.51 to 1.15. I apologize for that. That's my mistake. I also updated the density comparisons, and that's the third page for you from the handout that was there earlier. I think the best one to probably compare this to would be the New Britain Avenue PDD that you approved a few months back. And that would be the line that doesn't have the inland wetlands on it because you're comparing essentially usable land to usable land. And it's very consistent as far as the number of bedrooms that it generates. This project actually generates a few less units per acre than the other one does. So it gives you an idea of, just a general idea of the concept of what's going on. Number 3 on the front page of your memorandum is there, again, what we talked about, that there would be no windows on the second or third floors of the west elevation of the building. And that is a modification that the applicant's proposing to the original application. So that's what we're looking to stand on. And then the same goes with number 4 as to the balconies, the westernmost balconies on the second and third floor of the building to be screened, again, to provide screening to the residential use to the west. Other than that, we would look to stay with the original application. If you believe that a better development is by the alternative that was proposed at the May 12th hearing, I've given you under number 5 there the 4 things that you need to consider. Number 1, there would be no change to the zone change map area, to the zone change map. As to the special exception, I think it would be appropriate to reference that the front building line be moved in accordance with footnote 2 of section 2.03B of your regulations. And I've given you a copy of that as well. Number 3 is to the text amendment. It would be, as proposed on the page, included in there, but again, it ties in the front yard requirement that on a corner lot, one front yard shall be 24 feet and another can be reduced down to 12. And then as far as the site plan modification, it would require your conditional approval to adopt the 12-foot line. A couple other things, I think we addressed as much as we can the traffic issue. We provided the evidence statement from Mr. Hesketh. Obviously, this is a busy street. It's designed to be a busy street. If anything, this development might serve to slow traffic down a little bit. And if you look at other parts of Route 10, to our neighbors to the north, like Farmington, they've got Miss Porter's school right smack in the middle for probably a quarter of a mile of the area up there. They have a church. When you go down to Southington, Route 10 runs right smack through the middle of the town, so traffic slows substantially there too. And there's probably nothing wrong with traffic having to slow down a little. People get used to it. We talked about the area of the trees on the western part of the site. I went over there again this afternoon, to take a look at it, and Charlie's going to get up and say a few words about it. But there are probably 8 or more trees right along the property line that are 6 inches or more in diameter. So they're very substantial trees. They do form a line across there. We believe it would be appropriate to save those. They're tall. They're probably some 25 to 30 feet tall.
Can I ask you a question on
Yeah.
that? Do we know the species? Are they sugar maples?
Yeah, they're maples.
But are they sugar maples?
That I don't know.
Do we know, So if the root system expands out as wide as the drip line of the tree, do we know if any construction in any of your plans would be entering into the drip line of those trees?
You know, when you look at the trees from the neighbor's side, and that's kind of how you got to get in there. You got to go down Pease Court, and there's a dead end right there. It appears that the tree, the canopy is not broad. It doesn't come out far. So it appears that maybe the trees, when they were smaller, might have been trimmed by the neighbor, which they have the right to do. Property owners can trim overhanging limbs right up to the property line. So if I have a tree on my property and it's on my property by a foot, my neighbor could theoretically go and buzzsaw the whole side that overhangs their property. That's the law. But it does look like these trees, the canopy doesn't come out very far. Now going the other way to the east, you know, I don't know root systems, but I do know that there are a series of other trees beyond those that would come down. So the canopies on several of them along the property line don't extend very far to the east either, because there are other trees there. It's relatively dense in there. So how the roots meander when you have a lot of trees that are close to each other, I don't know the answer.
They're still not supposed to go beyond the drip line if they're sugar maples, if you talk to an arborist.
Yeah.
So I guess my concern is, without consulting an arborist before you dig, you're going to damage the trees if you're in the drip line, if that is an accurate statement that I'm making based on talking with an arborist. And so I don't know trees either, but I can tell you I haven't done anything to my tree in the side flower bed of mine, and I have half of a rotten tree right now, and we're trying to get to the bottom of that. But some of these root systems on these trees are very superficial. They can be damaged by fertilizer, they can be damaged by so many things. And some of the root systems aren't straight out, they spiral. And so with that, if you really want to preserve the trees, you really should consult with an arborist to say, hey, you know, what species are these and what do we need to do to save them? Because as one of the members that spoke at the hearing mentioned, that there's been trees that are in that area that had disruption too close to the root systems and they're dead.
Charlie Talmadge with Development Planning Solutions, 225 North Main Street, Bristol, for the record. This is not an issue that is foreign to us from a construction standpoint. I'm not going to stand here and profess to be an arborist either, but we have consulted them on previous projects. We have had surveyors come out and stake limits of clearing so contractors know the border that they can't go beyond. Arborists in previous projects have made recommendations to us in terms of the type and the size and the weight of equipment and how close you can get to some of these trees. So we would certainly be open to bringing appropriate professionals onto the site prior to construction to do those evaluations and protect these trees to the extent that we can.
Thank you.
The other interesting thing when I saw out there today, I was coming south on Route 10 and I got stopped at Nazo's southerly parking lot, and I could see down where the crossing guard must have been letting kids across because the traffic was stopped there. But you know, they do cross the kids there, but that's it. They don't cross them up at Broad Street. And for what it's worth, there were several kids that were cutting through the subject property where the office building is, presumably to go down Broad Street. And there are, like as I said before, probably a couple dozen kids that do walk there. So you know, I got to assume that the Board of Ed knows what it's doing as far as where they're putting crossing guards and not. Would you like us to go through the revised plan again?
Well, I guess my assumption, and maybe it's silly of me to have an assumption, but I guess I thought tonight what you were going to come before, you were going to make a decision with which direction you wanted to go with which plan, and you were going to bring us a finalized plan for your preference, not ours.
Well,
Because we're not doing the work up here, you guys are. We don't get paid.
well, we would say that we would prefer the shifted plan but it would require those conditions that I've laid out for you. So, we would need cooperation from you in making a condition of approval that the special exception portion be included to allow the building line to be adjusted pursuant to your regulations. And then when you go and you vote on the site plan application, it would be a modification to or approve it as per the revised plan. And we're certainly happy to put that up there if you want to see it again. I don't think it's too difficult to understand.
John, the C1 that was up here is the same C1 we've seen before, correct? I have the old original plan, but we just had the one page up here tonight.
Well, that's the original plan that you have.
Yeah,
It's
right.
not it's not the one that was
This,
offered at the last meeting.
Do we have plans for this?
I only have one set of plans for that. I received it last Thursday and
Okay.
didn't really have an opportunity to take a look at them. I was out on Thursday and today was a very busy day in other respects.
So the revised plan that you have one copy of, we don't have up here. The only thing we have is this. So you have all the details there.
Correct.
We've got handouts for you.
Okay. We'd love them, because all we have is the one you gave us the last time, but then, so do you
I
need,
mean, they adjusted the building location, moved it closer to East Street,
right,
and then modified the parking to some degree to accommodate where the new building was, so that they could create a larger gap between the building, the construction area, and the property line to the west.
but you didn't have time to review them?
No.
So it's kind of a moot point.
Well, the real issue that you need to decide on is whether or not you're willing to change the building line. All the other aspects of the design are most likely consistent with what the original plan said.
Steve, you want
This is the same thing though, isn't it? Attorney Galsky, is that you gave us the last time?
Madam Chair, for the record, Stephen Judas with Cole Civil and Survey, 876 South Main Street in Plantsville. These are updated. If you remember the last meeting, there were some questions about the bulk table.
Right.
And then we expanded the landscaping along the westerly boundary and a fence line and kind of wrapped it around the corner a little bit. So there were some modifications from the previous plan, but slight modifications based on the discussions that we had here at the last meeting. We did go through and update all of our engineering reports for stormwater management and so on, and the plan does meet your requirements for stormwater management.
I could read this even with my glasses.
I have a larger scale set of plans too. I could give
Yeah,
you.
because I can't even read this. Thank you.
So the plan set you have is the updated plan set with all the details and drainage calculations have been modified according to that plan.
So this is the one John has that he hasn't reviewed.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and this is that alternate plan.
That set is based entirely on the alternative layout.
Correct. And then you updated the table.
Yes, with the required setback of 12 feet or 24 because it's a corner lot, and then our setbacks are 30.7 and 14 feet.
And then it said the required, 24 feet and one of 12.
Right, correct. And then there was a question on the height, so we went back and checked the heights.
Divided. I know, I'm still reading. Red maple. So it's looking at, like on your table, you've got for the shade trees a mix of red oak, red maple, silver linden, and wild red cherry. Correct?
Yes,
And then the screening trees, American pillar and emerald green arborvitae, which those are the ones that are added?
those are proposed plants.
No, not the existing.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Those are all proposed.
So the ones that we're worried about are in the shade trees that are,
The plant list is solely proposed plants. It doesn't call out any existing plants. The trees that you're concerned about are within the
buffer.
area that we're preserving. So the site plan has been modified to increase the clearing limit. We moved it further away from the property line, so we would be able to preserve those trees and as much of the drip, area that we could.
So how would someone that isn't here tonight, that for whatever reason lives in one of these units, if they decided they wanted to set something else up and they wanted to go into the limits of the clearing over there, and they didn't like a tree and they wanted to just cut it, then how's the town going to enforce the fact that that tree was there? Because it doesn't say on here limits of the clearing. It doesn't say that it's the ones that are existing. It just has the little swirly thing on the edge.
That's our symbol for limits of clearing. Typically, there's a fence line there as well, proposed fence, and additional plantings on our side of the fence. I can't tell you that no one will ever go in there. I don't know. I don't know how we prevent
My
him.
intent up here is that if we have trees that are for a buffer, for shading, for helping to maintain the privacy of the nature, the neighbors,
Understood.
and the quality of life for all parties involved, that I need a way as a commission that town staff will have the ability to regulate that those trees aren't touched. And right now I don't have a mechanism based on how your site plan is before me because the issues come up before. I want to protect those trees. And so if they're damaged, I want them replaced. And so somewhere we need to have a mechanism for what's there and how I'm protecting it. Because I don't want it half dead, falling down, somebody complaining about it, and us not able to regulate it.
Do you want an inventory of the trees that are there?
No, but I want the limits of the clearing so that we clearly know that that can't be touched just because somebody wants to cut it, or if it's cut, somebody has to replace it if it's dead.
I think the most appropriate way to do that, and you touched about it earlier when you were talking with your consultant, and it clearly is a problem around town, is that it be made a condition of approval and it be put on the site plan.
It has to be maintained.
They have to be maintained. You know, we can't protect, not that it would happen here, but somebody driving into a tree somewhere.
Right,
or,
right, absolutely.
you know,
But then it has to be replaced.
It has to be replaced to the reasonable extent possible. It doesn't, you know, you're not gonna replace a 40-foot tree, but you certainly could replace a 15-foot tree. I don't know if you remember the application we had last fall over on Route 177 on, for Adam. What was this? What's that? Yeah, where we had the general industrial zone up against the residential zone. I don't know if you've gone out there and seen it, but he built the berm. You know, he put the fence on top of the berm, like he said, and he's got trees that still extend up above. So they're probably 12 to 15 feet high, but you're not going to replace a 40-foot tree.
If I can interject, I would like you to consider as a comment or a note put on the plan, something to this. The existing natural buffer shall remain and be maintained, and if any part of such natural buffer should succumb or be removed, the property owner shall replace with such natural barrier with appropriate number and size of landscaping materials as designated in the zoning regulation. So in other words,
I love it, John. Thank you. Great verbiage. It solves an issue that you and I have gone back and forth
Right.
on, because you know, in zoning enforcement needs something to clarify what is supposed to be maintained and protected, and so you have something for enforcement reasons.
and if we wanted to take it one step further, if we can get a picture of the existing buffer placed on the site plan.
Yeah, in the record, I would love that. That'd be great. What's everyone else think?
Great.
I think it's totally appropriate, and we're doing the best we can. There's obviously some significant trees out there, and again, we're doing the best we can with what we've got.
And we appreciate that, but we have to make sure that stuff's, if the squiggly line, and I get that that's what is represented on a plan when we look at the limits of the clearing, but it's not enforceable. And that's the issue, is that for every single thing that we're approving, we have to have something that's definitive to be enforced. And if we don't, then we're having issues. So we gotta tighten things up a little.
And we probably need an amendment to the regulations that would go across the board for every application.
So, commissioners, at this point, do you have any questions about the revised plan? I have the big one if you'd like to see it. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead and continue.
Mr. Fury's going to address you.
Timothy Fury, 43 Bellevue Avenue, Bristol, Connecticut, representing the applicant. Bill and Steve have done a great job outlining the changes we've made to the plan to try to accommodate some of the concerns raised by the neighbors and the commission. I think your most recent comment regarding maintaining and identifying the buffer is reasonable and appropriate. I think the changes reflected on that plan are easily verified by your town staff, and a standard restriction that we address all remaining staff comments would take care of everything. Mr. Judas has reviewed the drainage and assures that it's compliant, and I'm sure your town engineer will verify that. And at the last public hearing, he indicated that he didn't feel it would be a problem to accommodate that through normal engineering methods, and Mr. Judas is indicating he did so. One thing I really wanted to comment on is some of the comments by the neighbors in last month's hearing and in the month before appeared to be this discussion about the big developers and the developers' care. So I found that unique in this instance, and I just wanted to reiterate, because when we walked outside last time, and I didn't think of it till after, and it was because some of the comments by Joe's family. And the comments by the family were, how, if when we get this approved, are we going to design some of the interior of these units? And the reason the family was so interested is because Samantha and Joe Naples intend on living there. Joe Naples III, his father, was born here in town. His mother and father both died in their home here in town, where they all lived for 5 decades. Joe, as part of his parents' estate, bought the house and still owns it today, and has hopes that as his family matures, they're going to live there and raise family in the house he grew up in. Joe, who grew up here, has his business here in your downtown, and all of his employees here. His daughter Samantha, who just graduated from UConn with an honors degree, is now an employee of the Naples Company, and she will be one of your residents. And that's what you want to achieve. That's the purpose of this regulation. To have this young executive want to be a part of your community. Have this other young executive, Joe, who manages the facilities for Joe's various interests, want to be a part of this community. So this isn't McDonald's Corporation. This is Naples Corporation. Your homegrown folks. This is what you're trying to preserve. This is the ideal. And this family, because of their connections with your committee, is going to the lengths to pay Mr. Judas, to pay Bill, to find these compromise things to make it a better plan to accommodate the community. And we hope you take that to heart. If you have any questions of me, I'm happy to answer them.
Any commissioners have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you don't have any questions, maybe let's open it up to the public, and then I would like to address you one more time at the end.
Jennifer, you had one email too that we received.
Yep, Kurt, would you be so kind as to read that into the record, please? For communications from the public.
From contact form at Town of Plainville, CT, CMS mailer at civicplus.com, sent Tuesday, May 26, 2026, 2:39 p.m. to John R. Bossy, subject 87 East Street. Hello, Jay Bossy. George Kroll has sent you a message. Dear Mr. Bossy, I hope you are the correct person to contact, as the Plainville, Connecticut website does not list a current director of planning and zoning. I just learned of the PDD special exception application for the wooded lot on East Street next to the cemetery. I was unaware a meeting had been held, and unfortunately I'm out of town and can't make the one tonight. If I were there, I would strongly voice my opposition to this zoning change for multiple reasons. I have watched the videos from the past meetings and can't believe what is being presented. It is true they are considering a change that would allow construction of an apartment building 3 times larger than what current zoning would allow on that lot. I also take exception to many of the comments from Attorney Fury, as he seems to try to scare and intimidate the board with statements that are exaggerations or wholly untrue. For example, he tells you on July 1st his client could build 27 units on the property without an exception. I have to wonder why his client doesn't just wait until then. He later states his client would need this new district to do this. So which is it? Can they build any number of units without exception or not? He essentially claims his client can do anything if he wants come July 1st. Again, then why isn't he just waiting? Something doesn't add up here. Maybe since there doesn't appear to be a current director of planning and zoning, is it possible this developer is simply trying to push this project through at a time when the full oversight of the town is not there? Should we be waiting until a director is hired to vote on such changes? It was stated that only one neighbor is impacted by this development. Really? The property is surrounded by other residences on all sides and across the street, not to mention I, along with hundreds of residents and countless out-of-town visitors to the high school, pass by that property daily. To suggest it only impacts one person is laughable. Not surprising, none of these attorneys, consultants, or the developer live in Plainville. Would they allow such reckless development in any of their towns? The mention of going to ZBA and getting a variance is equally comical. Has a variance ever been granted for a developer to build a structure 3 times the size allowed by current zoning regulations? In closing, I strongly oppose this building and hope the commission does what is best for Plainville and task this developer to come back with a plan that is within the current regulations, or at least something much more closer to them. Maybe suggest they check their math too. George Kroll, 38 Spring Street, Plainville.
Thank you, Kurt. Would anyone from the public like to speak? Come on up, Matt. And just state your name and address for the record, please. And I believe we have a pad up there for our names and.
Matthew Weimer, 16 Peace Court. First, I would say still am opposed to anything being built there, but if it has to be, I would be with the one that keeps the trees, and I think it was the second site plan. And I like that you address the fact that if the tree falls or somebody just maliciously cuts it down, that it has to be replaced, so thank you. I was up there for 17 years, and I'll disagree with something Mr. Kroll said in his note about trying to push this through when they're short-staffed. So I don't think that's a concern, and I trust all of you that are sitting up there to not let that happen. I commend everybody for living here so long, but I've only been in this town for 22 years, and I feel like I should still have a voice and not want something built in my neighborhood that I don't agree with, no matter how long I lived here. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak?
Hey, good evening. Mark Mazzalupo. Mark Mazzalupo, 32 Peace Court. I had some things to hand out, but I'm afraid to kind of send those over given Madam Chair's concern for trees. She might be upset with how many I killed with these handouts, so I'm just going to keep them. Thank you again for continuing this hearing and allowing for further public comment. There are times the answers we receive as townspeople from the applicant might not address what we asked, so the ability to follow up is greatly appreciated. I also hope you took the opportunity to review the corrected density calculations table provided in the last meeting and equally provided here. This was not presented as some sort of petty gotcha item, but rather to show the real scale of this project. I believe this truly was a typo, but it carried through into their calculations and presented an analysis that was inaccurate and subsequently misleading. Frankly, I'm more concerned no one from the town caught this error. Growing up at 32 Peace Court, the adjacent property to the west of the vacant lot, I know firsthand the benefits of this location. I was able to walk to every school I ever attended and had the convenience of professional buildings, banks, restaurants, and of course, Nazzles and Dairy Queen at my disposal. It is truly a special place to live within Plainville, and we welcome the opportunity for others to enjoy the same experience. Any apartment at this location would undoubtedly be desirable to people of all ages and backgrounds. We are not opposed to responsible development of this vacant land and appreciate the concessions this applicant has made, but we still can't understand the reason for the scale. I have reviewed this application, the POCD, and Plainville zoning regulations more times than I care to admit. And it is clear this proposal is anything but responsible. Since the creation of PDDs is relatively new, and those consisting of less than 2 acres are exceptions requiring the committee's review, I would like to I would like you to consider this. The previous approved Laurel Court development, one that was mentioned as a great comparable, at 141 New Britain Avenue, is similar in many ways to this proposal. Both required exceptions to current zoning, are located on state highways, are in general commercial districts, and each have at least one of their borders touching a property in a residential district. But that's where the similarities end. Consider this. Laurel Court sits on 1.45 acres with just 19 units, a density of 13 units per acre. Now, I don't have this down, but I'm sure he's going to come up here and tell you that, well, it would be denser if the wetlands weren't there. I wish there were wetlands on the 87 East Street because it provides a buffer for the surrounding buildings and properties. 87 East Street will sit on just 0.6 acres. The reality of what's being built sits on 0.6 acres, not 1.15, with 24 proposed units, a density of 40 units per acre. The Laurel Court building is only 6,000 square feet. 87 East Street will be almost 20,000 square feet. Again, no improvements or changes are being made to the existing developed property, only to the 0.6 acres. That makes 87 East Street more than 3 times the density of the only similar PDD in Plainville. The proposed East Street building is more than 3 times the size, yet will sit on less than half the amount of land. Now, the applicant tends to share statistics based off the combined lot sizes of the vacant lot and the already developed lot, but their plans show the real truth. Everything they intend to build sits on just 0.6 acres. Keep that in mind. They state there is a need for residential over commercial space and claim their proposal will have less traffic and won't require curb cuts. We're not arguing this and like the idea of adjoining the properties to eliminate the requirement for additional curb cut, as it would be safer. But they fail to demonstrate a need for an exception that allows a building of this size. As I've stated, we are not opposed to the development of this parcel, and through this process have come to understand the benefits of an exception eliminating the requirement for first floor commercial space in favor of 100% residential. However, our concern remains the sheer size and scope of this structure and how the scale is incredibly disproportionate with the buildings surrounding it. Not just how it impacts our property, but the entire community. To make this happen, they also want to increase the maximum allowable impervious zone by 10%. Even when their math is based on the hypothetical combined acreage of the 2 lots, they still can't make the size of this building work, so they're asking for yet another exception. I can only imagine the real percentage if you consider the impervious zone of just the 0.6 acres that will be developed. Is it more like 60 or 70%? It continues. They want to change the allowable building height from 30 to 50 feet, an increase of 67%. When then doesn't it stand to reason that the setback should also be proportionately increased to benefit the entire community? As you know, Section 7.3, Part D1C of Plainville zoning regulations require the Commission to evaluate special exception applications to ensure, and I quote, the proposed use and proposed buildings and structures are in harmony and character with the surrounding properties. Separately, Part D3C requires the location, nature, and height of buildings shall not hinder or discourage the appropriate development and use of adjacent land and buildings or impair their value thereof. Throughout Section 7.3, there are numerous requirements asserting a special exception must be consistent with the surrounding area and not impact it negatively. This application clearly does not meet those requirements. In addition, Section 3.5 outlining the establishment of PDDs clearly and specifically states consideration for such applications under 2 acres will only be given to proposals that, and I quote, illustrate complementary physical characteristics with adjacent properties. It is an undeniable fact that this PDD will not do that. So while I commend the applicant for his bold and creative approach to filling a need for additional housing in Plainville, it is clear the scale of this development is well outside the scope of what the POCD intended for planned development districts and certainly well beyond existing zoning regulations. As such, we maintain the Commission should deny this application as it is currently written, but continue to work with the applicant to establish a suitable alternative that benefits not just them, but the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
I apologize for how long it was, too.
That's
I know
okay.
you've got a long night ahead of you.
That's okay. Come on.
Wendy Irving, 9 Weatherstone Ridge Road. I believe that the Planning and Zoning Committee should not be forced to make a decision based on material that was not available in advance. That handouts in a meeting shouldn't have to be reviewed and then a decision made based on that, because even though you guys are great, reading all of those plans is difficult and it's very easy to miss something. So, and the plans are not available yet to the public, so nobody else had a chance to review what it is that was handed out tonight. So I don't really think that we should be forced into making a decision tonight. I want to make a comment about if you live in town, that you should all understand that our desire is not to create maximum size apartments, but smaller and quaint apartments would be more appealing to people. We have, over the last year or two, built these stuffed on as much apartments as possible on little pieces of land all over town, and it's starting to look pretty awful and feel kind of crushed all over. But if people would start taking property instead of building these big boxes as much as we can, but make them a little bit quainter and smaller, it would be much more appealing. And if you've lived in Plainville your whole life, you would understand that, because there's very little open space left in our town. And the third thing is, I keep hearing through not just this one, but other reviews, that there's a lack of consideration for traffic and school children walking and others walking around in these areas where we're building more apartments. There's a lot of safety issues, as in somebody got killed on New Britain Avenue recently. I don't know the details of it, but I remember standing here and saying, you stand on that road and watch the traffic. I can't tell you how many times I've been almost killed there. And on this East Street area, when you come in and out of, if you try to come in and out of Nasso's, it's always kind of a risky situation when you're trying to move through that. So we're adding more people, we're more to the area, people coming in and out of driveways, and we have people that walk around in this area, that walk to the grocery store, and we still have 2 schools over there with kids walking. Now, if the number of school kids is not that high, then it's no big deal, right? But if it's your child that's walking across that street and gets killed by a car because there's a lot of traffic around or something's kind of crazy, then it really matters. So we need to be more considerate about making these traffic areas where our schools are and what's going on, because it doesn't mean 1,000 kids are going to get killed, but it's one person, like that one person on New Britain Avenue. It's that one person, as we continue to increase the traffic and the movement in our little town of Plainville, that will matter. Thank you.
Wendy, could you just put your name on the paper for me, please? Thank you.
Gotta wait for Weatherstone referral.
Would anyone else like to speak from the public? If not, Attorney Golsky or Attorney Fury, did you want to address the comments? Thank you.
Bill will summarize, but I just wanted to respond to some of the comments. As to Mr. Kroll's letter, we've been planning this application for the better part of a year, well before the statute that you were reviewing tonight was passed, or even really being discussed publicly. When we learned of the new zoning proposals and by the state, we certainly reviewed them, but Joe and Charlie and Steve, Bill, they felt they designed a good plan based with guardrails based on what this commission has been doing, and we didn't want to deviate from that. The plan you have before you does provide benefits and guardrails that the statute doesn't allow really or require, and part of my job is to point that out. You got some education independently done. It wasn't a threat. It was just a discussion. I just want you to be aware. Joe's chosen not to put the brakes on and try to do it this summary way. We're fine with meeting some of the concerns the neighbors are aware. We're fine with the condition you discussed tonight about the preservation of the buffer. Those are things that aren't required under the new statutes designed to just force housing to get it going, and that's fine. And part of it is, because of the connections to the community, because of the connections to our design team and our design team to your community. This isn't a situation where we said, why aren't we building it that way? Well, we're not building it that way because that's not where we started. That's not where we're working with your staff, and that's not where we wanted to end up. In terms of Mr. Weimer's comment, I hope at no point we diminished your voice. 22 years is a long time. My wife's been in Bristol 40 years. I still call her a carpetbagger, but that doesn't mean she's not a part of our community, and you certainly are. And I commended it. My two meetings I've been at, the neighbors have been respectful. They've had some helpful comments, and anyone can speak for their properties. When people get mean-spirited, that I get upset, and no one's done that in my experience here, and I certainly appreciate that, and certainly with, and I'm going to mispronounce your name, Mark, but your comments as well. In terms of Ms. Irving's comments, the issues that we came back for today are not that complex. We updated the graphs. We've given you a solid presentation of the movement of the building to accommodate some of the concerns of the neighbors. You've provided some language to reinforce that buffer if that's the way you would so choose. So really it was to update the simple items that we discussed at the last meeting to make sure they made an appropriate plan. There isn't any magic to it. And in terms of the traffic, we've provided both the historical data from your own records. We've provided a letter from a professional, the traffic engineer, one of the best in the state, indicating that this proposed use is less impactful than other proposed uses. And there is no evidence that there's been this major risk to the children. Of course it's Route 10 and people have to pay attention, but there's no great history. And I'm not sure if there was a death on New Britain Avenue in Plainville, but there was a death on New Britain Avenue in Farmington, and that's in one of the most rural sections of Farmington, out near the meadows, near the bike trail. And it was sadly a drunk driver that killed someone on a motorcycle and damaged a truck. Maybe there was another one too, but the one that I know of in the past week was out in rural Farmington on New Britain Avenue. So not really relevant to this. And with that, I'll leave it to Bill to summarize. Thank you.
Thank you.
you know, we dance a fine line in trying to bring you the best proposal that we can. And I can't think of a project that would spend more time on in trying to resolve small, you know, minor issues than this one. A lot of what's there was decided, you know, some 40 years ago when the Planning and Zoning Commission at that time drew the zone line parallel to Route 10, almost all the way down Route 10 and Whiting Street as well. And, you know, the property immediately to the west of us is, half of that property is in the general commercial zone. The two properties up on Broad Street are both in the general commercial zone. So it kind of reaches a point again where, you know, pragmatically, what could be built there? And what's the difference of what could be built there? And I had this discussion with Mr. Bossy, he brought it out. Again, very pragmatically, is that essentially what we're looking to do here is to replace the first floor with residential rather than commercial. Because the very same building could go in with commercial on the first floor and residential on the 2 floors above. Eventually that site will get used. You know, property sits sometimes, but it'll eventually get developed. And I don't know that anybody would go to the extremes that have been offered here to preserve the natural resources out there, attempt to preserve the resources for the benefit of the neighbors. There's no benefit to the developer in pushing his building closer to Route 10. It's certainly not going to be as desirable a residential unit for the people that live on the end there. So I think there's been as much sacrifice as there needs to be. There's very good planning involved. You know, we've gone conservative with the parking. We don't want to go down to, you know, 1 parking space per unit. We don't think it makes sense. And I think you've got a good, smart plan there. So I would encourage you to improve it with the conditions that we laid out. And then also the condition that Mr. Bossy mentioned earlier with the trees would be appropriate when you vote on the site plan application part of it. Any further questions?
Any commissioners have any questions? Wendy, did you have something else you wanted to ask?
I have to be petty.
You got to come up to the mic though, Wendy, and state your name and
I
address
know.
for the record.
I'm sorry.
Remember, because we're on tape, both here, audio, and
I know.
for everybody else.
Wendy Irving, 9 Weatherstone Ridge Road. I just want to read something. An 88-year-old Middletown man tragically died after being struck by a motorist in the 400 block of New Britain Avenue in Plainville, Connecticut on Saturday. He was transported to Hartford Hospital but was succumbed to his injuries. And further down it says that New Britain Avenue was shut down near Crooked Street, which isn't in Farmington, it's in Plainville, for several hours, but reopened in the late afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. So, John, you need to review this, correct?
I need to review the site plan. The special exception is related to the PDD. The zone change and instead text amendments are related to the PDD. And then that's all tied into the site plan. But from a technical standpoint, they're all connected, but 3 of them are together and one kind of attaches itself to the 3 that. In other words, you have to pass the 3 initial ones in order to pass the 4th one in this regard. But they're, from a decision-making standpoint, you can close the public hearings for the first 3 items. I would suggest that since there was some information that you may not have fully digested, that you not make any decisions in regards to the applications tonight, and you reconsider or consider them at your June meeting, June 9th meeting. So you would close the public hearing, and then you would react from the standpoint of old business. You would move that to the June 9th meeting. Or you can vote on it tonight too. I'm not suggesting that you can't vote on it. All I'm just suggesting is that there was some information that you may not have fully digested, digested, and that, you know, you can take the time between now and the 9th to review the matter. And you can always, if you have questions in regards to the matters, you can always refer it to staff, and staff can help you digest the information.
So my only question is, these plans came in when, Thursday?
I believe they came in Thursday. I was out on Thursday, and they were on my desk when I returned today.
But the public hasn't really seen the plans or had access to see the plans other than what's been up here on the screen, correct?
That's correct.
And that's not fair.
That's a decision that, you know. I mean, the
I
difference
mean,
is,
a public hearing, they should have access to the information, and when we're looking at the details on the site plan, maybe I'm wrong, but what does everyone else think?
I don't have a problem deferring it to June
Agree with your take?
Gentlemen?
Agree.
Are you suggesting you leave the public hearing open?
Yes.
We like to be
Yeah,
transparent.
no, I just wanted to, just, those specific words didn't come out, I just wanted to make sure I
My
understood what you were saying.
suggestion is that I feel like there's pieces of information that were presented, and there's pieces of information that the public didn't have access to.
Yes.
And that staff hasn't reviewed it. It is all jumbled together in terms of, you know, you could approve a couple of pieces of it, but then if you don't approve the site plan for whatever reason, then it's kind of mute.
Yes.
Everybody okay with that?
well, you're gonna have to ask the applicant for an extension.
What's the time now?
Well, I mean, you're close to 135 days on the public hearing.
Would you agree to an extension?
Yes.
How many days do we need to get us?
Well, I mean, the public hearing, you're extending the public hearing period.
Correct.
We've already conducted 3 opportunities. It would seem to me that the applicant is pretty set on what their final application is going to be.
In terms
So,
of the 2 plans?
basically, they discounted the original plan and have suggested that they want to move forward with moving the building towards East Street,
With the revised
the
plan?
revised plan, and that's the one that
I have here.
you have there. I would think that, on June 9th, that should be the last time you seek additional information, especially if the application stays as it is right now. I mean, you have not expressed any comments in regards to any major objections to any of what's being put forth for you. We just seem to be, from a technical point of view, information hasn't been available long enough to be distributed to those that might be interested in looking at it.
Any other comments from anyone?
My only comment was I would really like to see what other options we have if we don't go with the PDD route. I think it was suggested that you should show us what other options are out there, and I think you may have shown us.
We did show some at the last meeting, if alternatively, it was a commercial use. Do you have them?
No, we handed them out as well.
I have.
I mean, they showed for,
Yeah, they showed
a
for
coffee
different
shop,
Yeah.
they showed for a bank. They also, I think, didn't necessarily show, but they did describe a mixed use, which, from an economic standpoint, is not as viable as, say, strictly residential or strictly commercial.
But they could build a building similar in size in the general GC zone, correct?
Yes, they could build a building of the same
3
footprint,
stories, so
the
similar
same
in square
footprint,
footage, without
with-
coming through a site plan, without coming through a special exception.
as long as they put commercial on the
On
ground
the first
level.
floor, but they could have handicap apartments on the first floor.
Yes, they could go,
Because it's similar to the one where the cottage restaurant used to be.
correct.
and they came in and wanted to change something, had a public hearing, and the outcry was huge, and they withdrew it and just came in, and there was nothing else that could be done. So I think we have to keep in mind what could go there without public hearings and without special exceptions.
Correct. If they were to put commercial on the ground floor, you'd just be doing a site plan review, which offers no opportunity for public comment.
Except that, you know, I'm just for contrast, you know, I think we have to keep that in mind, because that's exactly what happened down there on Route 10, and the public hearing went away when they withdrew their special exception, and the neighbors were still upset that they built a big building, but they built it legally within our zoning regulations.
And then after July 1st, that's a whole nother scenario as to what can be built there.
Exactly, so I think it's something that everyone has to keep in mind. You know, you don't have to vote one way or the other, but you have to keep it in mind.
I mean, your major decision in the PDD is this a better alternative to what your regulations allow the applicant to do? That's what a PDD is all about, is creating a special zone that is a better alternative than what your regulations allow.
And then what's the criteria that we perceive is classified as better?
No,
Well, that's subjective.
that's very
Correct.
subjective, but I think not adding a curb cut on Route 10 is a big benefit to this project. You know, like you said, if you put a bank there, you'd obviously have a curb cut there. 'Cause I think that makes the traffic and the safety worse, adding a major driveway on Route 10 that's not there already.
How many days would you consent to for an extension?
Typically, we just do it to the maximum extent provided by law, and that'll push you out more than you want to go.
You're allowed up to 35 days.
So do you want to do 35 days, and that way our next meeting is June 9th?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Sure. That's 35 days from the,
End
Opening
date.
of the opening of the public, first time the public hearing is open.
I think it's 35 days from the day that
That ends,
that would have ended
Yeah, it's 60, 70 days in
in total.
right. Okay.
The other thing I would ask, John, do you have that language that you provide? Do you have that written?
I have it written, I was writing it while you guys were talking, I can send you an email tomorrow and, you can,
If you think it would be helpful, I'll add it to that memorandum I had, and that would fall into the site plan part of it.
Sure. And then there's a typo on C1. Item number 1 under the zoning information table, the last word street. STREETRE. This thing.
We'll get that straightened up.
I usually don't pick up on them. Other people are usually better at it than me.
Yeah.
Okay,
Continue.
so we'll continue with a 35 to the next meeting with a 35-day extension. So we want to make a motion to continue the public hearing at our June
Madam Chair, I'd like to close the motion.
9th. Continue the public hearing to June 9th, and that the applicant consented to a 35-day extension.
And that the applicant for 35 days.
Second.
Any further comments or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any extensions? Motion carries. Pete did. Okay, so that takes care of items 1, 2, and 3 under public hearings, and under unfinished business. items number 1, 2, 3, and 4, all related to PZ 03/26. We've got number 12 for the special exception, number 13 for zoning regulation change text amendment, number 14 zoning map change, and number 12A for the site plan. Those are all going to stay where they are, and they'll be addressed at our next meeting on June 9th as they coincide with the public hearings. Moving on to new business, we have PZ 05/26, number 16, special exception, JAG Property LLC, 25 Jackson Way, Robert Jackson Way, seeks approval to operate a motor vehicle use at 25 Robert Jackson Way in an RI zone. And it's recommended that we set a public hearing for June 23rd of 2026. Someone like to make a motion?
So move.
Second.
Well, that'll be here at the town Plainville Municipal Center, at 7:30. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 2, PZ 05/26, number 17, request to that's supposed to be amend.
Yes.
Amend the Plan of Conservation and Development, Bethany Ayers, executrix, to designate 34 Ledge Road consisting of approximately 6.31 acres as open space, Connecticut General Statute, Section 8-23J, revision of page 29 of the Plainville Planning and Plainville Plan of Conservation and Development. And the recommended action is to accept the request and add the item to the workshop session for discussion on June 9th. Were you going to talk to us on that one?
Yeah. Is that okay?
Were we going to address that tonight or, yeah?
You can have you initially
Give us a little bit of info.
presentation.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, did you get my initial cover letter to John in your packet? Did you give me that?
I got so many things in my packet. And I
so.
I think I read it though. Did you include it in the email? Something. I want to say I thought I read it somewhere.
Initially, you were just gonna accept, my recommendation is to accept the application and move it on. I thought tonight was gonna be a lot longer than it was. So
Okay.
you didn't get it.
Oh, okay. So we didn't get it.
So I can read it probably pretty quickly. This is somewhat unusual territory, an amendment to your plan of conservation and development. We did it a couple of years ago, if you recall, for the medical arts building up on the top of the North Mountain up above the Tilcon Quarry, and also for the former junior high school on Route 10. Had those two properties mentioned in the plan of conservation and development, and that's what we're looking to do here. Let me read the letter, then I'll give you some background, and I can provide you. Do you have them all with you or no? Because I gave copies.
I get it in the file.
All right, okay. I'm writing on behalf of Bethany Ayers, executrix of the estate of Joel H. Edmond, late of Plainville, to request an amendment to the plan of conservation and development to designate land owned by her in her capacity as the executrix, being 34 Ledge Road and containing approximately 6.31 acres, as being appropriate for open space designation. The subject land is known as Lot 2 of Block G of Assessors Map 31. Historically, the property had a farmland designation for many years, but that was eliminated after Joel died in January of 2024. He had for more than 30 years been growing evergreen trees on the property known as Edmond Farm. In fact, about 35 years ago, when my wife and I built our house here in town, I bought hemlocks from them up there that were 2 to 3 feet tall. It had also been a dairy farm for decades. When the property had more farmland, Christmas trees were grown there, and eggs were sold there at one point in time. There's a small hand-dug pond on the property. During Joel's last 2 years, he was unable to maintain the farm operations and it became overgrown. Its buildings fell into disrepair. In the 1920s, the family owned land extending from Woodford Avenue northerly all the way to the railroad tracks and the former Crooked Street, along Crooked Street, almost 4/10 of a mile. Essentially, that's where the heart of the I-84 Route 72 interchange is right now. That was all part of the farm back then. In the early 60s, almost 6 acres was taken on the west side of Ledge Road and southerly of Woodford Avenue for I-84. And their land used to extend all the way from Ledge Road to the Quinnipiac River. Most recently, when Bethany's grandmother died in 2002, the farm was decreased from 10 acres to its current size as a result of probate distributions, where Joel inherited the 6.3 acres and has kept it the same. And it's this heir's desire and goal to restore some farm operations there. There are presently some small vegetable and flower gardens, a few blueberry bushes, and a raspberry patch. However, they are not of sufficient size to qualify for any substantial income to constitute a farm. Designation of open space would allow agriculture use that does not otherwise qualify for the farm designation. I'm going to give you a little bit more background of exactly what that is, because I'm guessing you're probably not familiar with it. But a very simple requested and desired amendment to the PCOD would be to add a number 8 to the chart on page 30 to state, maintain 5 acres of the former Edmond Farm as open space with associated accessory agricultural use. This minimum of 5 acres would not include the area of the house that's on the property with the required area for it in its current zone of R20. In addition, the open space map on page 29 of the POCD could be amended to show the property in green. While subsection J of section 8-23 of the general statutes provides that an owner of land may submit a proposal to the commission requesting a change to the POCD, we don't have such a form available to the for the land use application. When the prior 2 were done, we did it by letter as I'm done here. Therefore, I submit that the commission accept this letter as the appropriate request, and that it specifies in that the specifics are provided here, and that the commission initiate supplementation of the POCD itself. In either event, the procedures are set forth in section H through J of section 8-23, and I had included that with John. And I know a lot of that's probably not going to make sense to you. And there was a sketch in there too of what the farm looked like. I'm going to pass it out. I only have one of those here in my set. And I do have a statute on the amendment for the plan of conservation and development. I don't think I need to give that out, but let me just pass that down and get an idea. It's at the very beginning of Ledge Road.
Just past Westwood.
Pardon?
It's just past Westwood.
Yeah, just past Westwood. You go past Westwood, and there's one house, and then there's this property. And I do have another handout for you too that was going to supplement what you didn't get with a little more background. And so hopefully this handout will help you here. I'll walk you through it. It'll only take about 5 minutes. So on the cover sheet, I tried to answer who, what, where, when, and why. So the who is Bethany Ayers. She's currently the executrix of the estate of Joel Edmond. She stands to inherit the property once the probate's done. Her grandfather, Joel's father, was a selectman in Plainville here back in the 50s, before our former government switched over to the current town council. So the what is to add a provision, just to mention in the POCD, to maintain at least 5 acres of the Edmond Farm as open space pursuant to Public Act 490. Now this is what we're looking to come under. Public Act 490 was enacted in 1963, and it contains 3 different elements to it that allow for the preservation of property generally in its natural state. One form is you can apply for forest land. In forest land, you have to have at least 20 acres. You don't have to harvest the lumber or anything, but essentially it stays in a natural state of 20 acres. The second is farmland, and that's what the property formerly had. But when Joel died, it died with him, and the assessor took it out of the program. Farmland, you don't have to generate a lot of money. You don't even have to generate a profit. You just have to perform some type of farm characteristic. It could be haying. It could be you own the property, you lease it out to someone to use for horses. You can board horses. People can come and bring horses in. And we do have one of those over on Cook Street. The third program under this public act is open space, and that's essentially where the land just sits open. You can do agricultural on it, like if you were doing farming, and that's what she's proposed. That's what she's doing now. It's just so small, eventually, what she would like to do is to get back into the farm characteristic of this. I've met with our assessor Bridget and gone over the requirements for it. I think we're on board together. There are some towns that have enacted a regulation or an ordinance, if you will, about the size of the property you have to have, what has to go on there, certain characteristics. She's not in favor of doing that right now, other than the fact that we would keep it at a minimum of 5 acres. Now, the current property is 6.3 acres, but we can't include the area of land where the house is. We have to kind of take that out of there. And so where the current house is, she would probably use anywhere from 0.8 of an acre to an acre. And that would leave a little more than 5 acres to remain as open space. I do have some pictures for you too. A part of it. The house that's on the property is in really rough shape. It would never pass current building codes, and she's deciding whether to try to keep it and add on to it or to just tear it down and start over. On the back of these, I've given you what the picture depicts too. There are really 3 areas of above average lawn space up there. The property fits well for open space because it does provide a buffer for the neighboring properties around it. The property does have frontage on 3 roads. It could be very easily subdivided and provide a number of lots. When we were settling Joel's mother's estate, Bethany's grandmother's estate, back 15 years or so ago, it was done with an idea that, eventually it might be developed, but that's not where he wanted to go, and that's not what she wants to do either. The other 2 heirs back then ended up selling off their lots, and houses were built on it. So this is what we're left with. Let's see. So the second page of the handout, page 2, is just from the statute regarding open space that comes from this Public Act 490, and it talks about the open space part of it. And again, there has to be a designation in the Plan of Conservation and Development, that's by statute, that would enable this property to apply for that program. That's pages 2, 3, and 4 is that statute. Pages 5, 6, and 7, and 8 all come out of your Plan of Conservation and Development, okay? And that's where it talks about the preservation of open space, and I think this proposal falls squarely within that, and we'll spend a lot of time on that. And then the last couple pages, pages 9 and 10, are excerpts from your subdivision regulations, and my guess is that some of you have probably never even seen our subdivision regulations at this point. We don't get too many subdivision applications, but there's a reference again within the subdivision regulations about open space. So, you know, this is kind of a unique thing. I don't know that certainly nobody's come before it like this. It's a fairly sizable area. If somebody were to come and subdivide property and they had to set aside the 20% for open space as required in your subdivision regulations, you'd have to have a site of at least 25 acres. And we don't have too many of those left in town. The procedure is you have to accept this. You have to set a public hearing at least 65 days out. And then in that time frame, you've got to refer it to the town council. The town council has the right to comment on it. And then it comes back to you for final approval, adoption. And again, all we're looking to do is add one sentence to the plan of conservation and development that would say that this property might be appropriate as open space under the 490 program.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So is she looking to deed it to the town or just
No,
change
no,
its
she's
designation?
gonna keep it, and eventually she wants to get it back and run it. She wants to live on part of it, probably 8/10 to 1/10 of an acre where the existing house is, and then the other 5 acres would stay as open space.
So she's just looking to make it so it's not developable and maintain it
Right.
for privacy,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera.
Right, and hopefully get it back to farmland designation, which it was before.
So why does she feel like she can't do it the way that it's already zoned?
Well, she doesn't want to develop the property. She doesn't want to subdivide it.
So why does she have to do anything?
Because she gets the benefit of the program. The program is a tax benefit.
Oh,
Okay, it's a tax benefit, and it had this tax benefit historically when it was farmland. But when he died,
right. The use changed because
she
it wasn't
terminated
enough.
it. Right. So she can't get it back to a farm at this point because, you know, I got a picture there of the hemlocks.
Right.
And, you know, they were 2 to 3 feet tall, and now they're 15 to 20 feet, and they're falling over. They've reached the, you know, they're not usable as trees. Unfortunately, the place just kind of went to hell over the last few years of his life. He just couldn't maintain it. And she would like to restore it. That's her plan. Her neighbor has had honeybees up there on the property. It's got a hand dug pond, not very big, probably not even as big as the enclosure of this area here. So, and it's got some neat historical aspects to it.
Okay.
So that's the consideration. We are up against somewhat of a time frame because it has to. Our outside time frame is is October 1st, the grand list year, to get that application in for there. So you would have to set a public hearing at least 65 days out. Certain notice has to be given prior to that. It has to get referred to the town council by statute as part of the amendment of the POCD. And then once the POCD is amended, it has to go back to the town council again for it to approve it once the bet is made, if you will.
Has to go to CROG too?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same process that you did just recently
Right.
with the other POCD amendments. The only thing that this would be is that there's a second step in which,
Right.
in order for it to be designated, the town council, you don't designate it, you just suggest, you make
Make
a
a suggestion,
recommendation.
recommendation.
And the town council ultimately makes the designation.
Some town councils have ordinances on where you do open space. Like some of them will say you can't do it in the industrial zones or the commercial zones, it's only gotta be in the residential zone. She did not want to enact an ordinance. She would rather have it go on a case-by-case basis. And, you know, we've never had one of these before, we probably won't have another one for another 50 years. But that's essentially what's behind it.
Any commissioners have any questions?
If it gets designated as an open space, how does she get it back to be considered a farm? Is there an avenue for that?
She would just have to, it's really an application. The three applications for forest land, farmland, or open space. So she could go back to farmland once she gets it up and established without coming back here again. It would just be filing a different type of application.
She has to make a certain amount of income off it for it to be.
No, you don't.
Nothing. Okay.
But you do have to keep records.
Okay.
You've got to have an income and expense. You don't have to make a profit. Doesn't have to be much either, but you do have to show something.
But Plainville can't do anything with it? If Plainville do anything with it?
It's not for us to, it's just gonna stay her land. But she's just gonna make it so that it's not
And
developable.
if she were to try to sell it, within 10 years, there's a very significant penalty. And it starts, if you try to sell it, once you get into this designation, this 490 program, whether it's forest or open space or farmland, if you sell it in the first year, you have to pay 10% of the sale price as a, I don't want to say a penalty, it's a tax, it's a recapture. And then it goes down every year after that. So the incentive is to keep it at least 10 years.
And who holds liability on the property? I'm sorry, I know I'm just.
No, the property owner owns it, and they've just got to keep it in an open space, in an open condition.
Right, but when nobody's going on it.
It's private open space.
It's private open space, not open to the
We're
public.
giving her the, if we, whatever, and it's still gotta go to town council, we just gave her a tax abatement.
Right.
Pretty much.
It would be essentially be restoring what was there before, yeah. When it was farmland, it would be similar. Because it was getting the tax benefit when it was designated as farmland, but when he died, pardon?
But it's not a
No.
farm anymore.
No, it's not. Well, it's not, you know,
It never
so
will be what it was.
also because he died.
Understood.
So the
but-
use isn't the same as
Yeah.
to what he did to it before when he was alive.
No, I got all that aspect, but in essence, she's asking for a tax break, she don't wanna pay the taxes on the 6 acres. She'll pay
Right.
the taxes on where the house is at after that.
It's
Maybe she'll make
part
it
of
into
the
a farm,
program.
because once we blessed her with the open space, not us personally, town council will, but
So I guess like you have to look at what's the pros and cons of that. The pros of that is that land's gonna stay in its current and it can't be developed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a tax abatement. Are there any other pros and cons? You have your wildlife, whatever's there.
Well, your decision is strictly on whether you want it to be open space. The town council is the one that decides whether they're going to grant a tax abatement. You're going to include, if you were to
our role is to.
If you were to reconsider this, basically, this shouldn't really necessarily be the only piece. And when you go through your next evaluation and plan of conservation and development, you should really be looking at the town in its entirety and deciding whether there are specific parcels that merit to be open for perpetuity. And you should label them, and then whether or not somebody wants to take advantage of this
Program.
the structure in the state statutes, that's their choice, and also the town council's choice.
And you've already done that in your POCD, and that's the picture I gave you here. Unfortunately, it's black and white.
Right.
But you've got different areas that that would be designated as appropriate for open space.
I mean, you might not recall, but many years ago, the town created an open space committee, and we evaluated everything in town, and some of the properties were private and some were public. And that was never really incorporated into the plan of conservation and development in the way that it could be.
Because we were always looking for linkages and creating tracts of land that made sense to maintain as open space or to acquire.
Yeah. Well, in any event, over time, it wasn't high on the list of priorities, and it got lost. In the next one, that might be something you want to consider to place higher in the priority list.
Then in relation to this property, where does it fall within what was already determined to be?
There should be a dot.
The red dot?
Yeah.
That's where it is, and the shape of it is more on the first map that I handed out, what it looks like.
I mean, it's just, a property owner needs to make some strategic decisions, because there are penalties if they decide they want to sell it.
Right.
I mean, they make some sacrifices to designate it, or to take advantage of the tax abatements. They make some sacrifices in flexibility and in that regard. Unlike when I believe, unlike the farmland one, once you can get out, the penalties aren't as great to get out of farmland as it is for this particular one. I'm not certain about that, but I believe the farmland one is got less stringent constraints.
Is it a substantial tax abatement, just out of curiosity?
It's not a lot. It might be like, it might have been like $1,000 a year. It's not a hell of a lot.
Not a big deal.
We don't have too many that are in this. We have a couple properties on
There's only two other ones that I'm aware of.
the Mikos and Zabrowski's.
There's one on South Washington Street that the Mattios own, I think, or a group, and then D'Amico's on Cook Street.
I think
And Zabrowski too also.
yeah.
So the two properties on Cook Street, and there's one property on South Washington
And I don't
Street.
think we have any forest land.
I don't believe so.
So you're saying that the town would only be able to collect $1,000 in taxes on almost 6 acres of land?
No,
He says it's $1,000
it's a
tax
$1,000,
abatement.
$1,000 abatement.
Less.
So it's not a very substantial tax abatement.
Because when you have acreage as a whole, it doesn't get taxed as if it was separate building lots. You know, I think she could probably get, I forget how many, it's either 7 or 8 building lots, and in this day and age, you know, if she sold it, she'd probably get $700,000. Or 2 other family members that sold their shares.
No, they're developed, they're houses.
Yeah. And so she's looking to make that commitment that she won't do it.
If she's the owner, she's the only one that could sell it, so.
Right.
After 10 years.
If she doesn't want it to become a development, she doesn't sell it. Is she concerned that her
Right.
kids are gonna sell it on her after she's gone? I don't know.
After 10 years, for example, if she wants to change her mind, can that be sold for development, like you mentioned?
She could sell it at any time.
Anytime.
After 10 years, she could sell it without a penalty.
So there's no guarantees. It's just she gets a deal. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that.
Just doing it to save a buck.
You kind of get penalized if you do sell it. Now, I had a client, actually a Plainville resident, bought land out in Towland a couple of years back, and he recently sold it for a little over $200,000. So he was 4 years into it, and he wrote a check to the town of Towland for, I think, $23,000 was the recapture. So it was significant. He was hoping to keep it longer, and his plans just changed. It doesn't mean somebody's going to develop it. It just means he doesn't own it anymore, and he had to pay the conveyance tax. So again, it's in the plan of conservation and development. It's kind of like a wish list for you. And you're not saying that it has to be, you're just saying that this might be a candidate for open space, and then the town council ultimately decides yes or no.
So what do we need to do tonight, John?
Well, tonight, you got introduced to the subject. You have to decide in the future whether you want to talk about it amongst yourselves some more, whether you want to invite the person that's proposing it involved in it, and then based on whatever you land, then you either modify the plan of conservation and development and start that process, or you tell the applicant, you know what, we're not interested. It's your plan of development, it's your document, your conservation plan of conservation development is your document. If you want to modify it based on the suggestions from an applicant, then you can. If you choose, if his suggestions don't merit changing it, then you basically tell him that, you know what, we reviewed the matter, and we just don't see it. We just don't see the importance of changing the document to meet your request.
She would have been here tonight, but she's out of state at a graduation. I can bring you I can bring you a full-size map next time if you want. I can bring you an example of where it would fit in the POCD. And again, it's just literally one sentence. It's got to be in the POCD so the town council can then recognize that and decide whether to vote or not. It's a lot of procedure for, it's a lot of effort.
Right, I mean, I don't know that it's benefiting the town, so I guess that's my thing is it seems like a lot of work for us to do when it's for someone else's benefit, not ours, and I get that there's a loophole in the statutes, but at the same time, I don't
Seems
know.
like a lot of work. Listen, we talk about it, listen to her, then it goes to the town council. If they don't want to give her the tax waiver, they don't, it doesn't matter.
I think there's ample provision in your plan of conservation and development, your subdivision regulations, your zoning regulations about preserving open space. And this is just a different way that you don't normally see.
Well, I'm not trying to be rude, but it's like you're trying to sell me a ketchup popsicle and I wear white gloves.
What's that?
I said, to me, this is like you're trying to sell me a ketchup popsicle and I wear white gloves.
Well, but if you're for open space, for open space.
I'm for open
regardless where it
space,
is.
but
If
I
you're
would be
against open space, then.
No, I understand.
I mean, it introduces a bigger question. If you're willing to consider this, are you willing to consider reviewing other parcels? I mean, I know that there's a time constraint on this particular parcel to meet the next go around for taxes. But, I mean, if the plan of conservation and development is absent any parcels in that section and doesn't identify any parcels or only a small number of parcels, and you want to reconsider the town as a whole, then this is an opportunity. If you wanted to begin the ball rolling and consider this parcel separate from everything else, that's your prerogative too. The issue of whether abatements or what, let's not call them abatements, let's just call them, they assess it at a lower value. Whether, that's not your decision to make, that's at the town council level. You could go through this whole action and the town council could decide, you know what, we just don't see any real value in doing this.
Mr. Bosley, then I have a question. Do we have to change it so that town council even looks at it? So if we say we don't want to change it, it doesn't even.
It's your prerogative to say, you know what, we evaluated your request and we don't see any reason to change the plan of conservation and development.
Because if she does nothing to it, it's still open space.
Yeah. I mean, there might be some legal maneuverings that could happen, but the reality of it is you have the discretion to say, yes, we reviewed it, but no, we don't agree with it. Or yes, we agree with it, and then change it.
Presumably, if, it sounds like she wants to keep this property as one chunk and like you said, renovate or whatever it is, live on a portion of it. But presumably if this didn't happen, if we didn't proceed with it or we did and then the town council said, no, we don't want to provide any sort of tax
Relief.
Change how it's the structure under which it's valued. She could just turn around and sell the property if she's not getting the use out of it that she wants. Because if she's not getting the benefit out of it she wants, she could presumably sell it.
She could sell, it's got frontage on 3 roads, so she could cut off a lot.
Yeah.
She could cut off a lot for the next 5 years,
That said, don't we take some of it then?
Again, you don't have to approve it. All you have to do is say that this property could be appropriate for open space. That's as far as you have to go. It's just
Understood, but I'm sorry, it's just that,
I thought it was kind of a novel thing because when I come in here with all these projects, all the neighbors come and scream about keeping open space, and here's somebody that wants to, is willing to spend the effort to try to do it.
But, yeah, I guess.
The open space is surrounded by residential homes. But when the fact that it butts across three.
Right, so if we
streets,
came
I-
in with
I
a subdivision application to cut this into 7 lots, don't you think you get, don't you get the owners all around there saying, oh no, this should say open space, you know, there's deer out there, there's turkeys out there.
What's the difference from the applicant that you're sponsoring that was just in here and left? Where's the open space there?
That's the general commercial zone, that's not an open space zone.
But
I think people look at it the same way. I get your point, Kurt.
Yeah.
Because it's not developed right now, so in their mind it's open space. Whether it's going to stay open space, it's perception.
Right, but when people, in my opinion, would be in the audience and listen, oh, open space, yes, we want open space, but it's open space not for the town's use, it's only for
Correct.
her benefit to
Which
not pay a
is-
certain amount of taxes. I don't get a benefit, nobody in town gets a benefit.
Well, most of the open space we've collected.
But it doesn't even
off
link to the
developers over the
existing.
last 20 years, no one touches or no one uses, so we're
Yeah.
not getting any benefit either, other than open space.
All right, well, I wasn't aware that you would be, from based on
Right.
the time being on the commission, I'm new to the commission.
Certain things, people come in and say, we're leaving 20% of our stuff as open space.
But no one else from the town
No
is
one
on
touches
that.
it,
Nobody can get
And the town doesn't wanna take care of them anyway, so.
So I mean, your open spaces, that's a difficult question because, for instance, Carrier's project on Bradley Street, they have private open space, similar to this. The only people that have access to it are people that own in that development, so that the condominium set aside open space. And I don't know the particulars on that particular open space, but they gave some open space to the town behind their project, but there's access to it, but there's no parking.
Right.
So it's really open space to
Nowhere.
people that abut it.
Oh, we have a bunch of that though.
That's pretty consistent with open space, not just in Plainville, but in many communities. It's open space, yes, but if you don't live anywhere near it, it doesn't offer you any real benefit.
But
Makes
it's not-
people feel good if there's open space.
Yeah.
Psychological.
Conservation.
Right, but if she, and I don't know, and it's not, but if she did eventually get it reclassified as a farm, is she gonna come in and ask to have cows or?
She doesn't have to do that.
20 acres
Doesn't have
for
to
a
do
farm.
That's automatic.
I mean, I guess the issue really comes down to the current plan of conservation and development has a section on open space, but it doesn't really spell out where and what properties that should be saved or conserved. In this particular case, the property owner wants to add their piece into that section specifically. Granted, there are, for lack of a better word, selfish interests in why they want to do this. But that section should have a whole list, really, of properties that you see as important to have some kind of open space, whether it's private open space or public open space. You can have some text in there that describes, how much of each you want, or whether or not you don't want private open space, you want it all to be public, that kind of stuff.
I understand, Mr. Bossy. Madam Chair, is this document here the document or represents that committee that you're still on?
We haven't met in forever and a day. So
But these would be the areas the town would like to have potential.
those are the ones that already are open space, correct?
No, some of them are desired for
Desired.
open space,
Where'd you get that map?
out of the POCD.
I mean, we have a copy of that map in my
I
office.
can't tell with the colors because it's
Unfortunately,
shaded.
I don't have a color copier.
So it is a part of the POCD.
Well, that particular one is, but I don't know whether they identified the parcel by name or by location, and maybe they identified it by map. I don't know. I'm not.
I put a red dot in it,
I mean-
where it's located.
I suppose there's an argument to indicate where the red dot is, where the existing considered open space would be that, and we don't have a colored map, but the dark area that's bordering Ledge Road. I suppose you could make a very thin argument that it's linkable, but it's not.
So the stuff that's already been dedicated open space is all the real dark.
Correct.
And then we have the desired open space, but you can't probably tell the difference between that and the regulated area because of the way the hashings and the color isn't.
I mean, I can call it up on the screen if you want me to.
It doesn't matter if it's linkable, because it's gonna be private open space.
Right, and so it doesn't matter, yeah, I mean,
So all else we really have to do is just entertain
And the only reason
Right.
she's doing it is for tax purposes, let's be realistic.
so I guess we should end, we are entertaining the idea, I guess.
We're entertaining the idea informally.
For discussion,
For
right.
discussion, we have to entertain the idea informally.
So I guess the point comes down to, you know, who's interested in this, who's not interested in this, and then if we're interested in this, it needs to go to the town council.
Let's do
Correct?
it.
Yes, ma'am.
So what does everyone think?
Let's entertain it.
We talked about it. What was that? Do it.
Let's entertain it.
Let's entertain the idea.
That's the word.
Entertain it and send it to the town council.
Yes.
Officially entertain it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what you wanted tonight, right?
Pardon?
Yeah, we're gonna entertain the concept and send it to the town council.
Thank you, and you do have to set a public hearing date, at least 65 days out.
Well, we haven't gotten that far yet, Bill.
So
They're entertaining the discussion, from what I can gather, you're entertaining the discussion to move forward with more debate and to come up with a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If it's a thumbs up, then they'll bring you in the process.
Yes.
And then.
No, I think that we
Thumbs down.
already got to that point, is we're looking to move it along, right?
You
To go to,
you can't amend the POCD without referring it to the town council.
Right.
Understood.
but that's what we're saying, we
But
wanna
can
initiate the
entertain idea,
process
initiate
to
the
get there.
process To get it there. So this would be
I'm
technically.
confused.
So what do you need from us
informative.
tonight to move this forward?
I'm confused because,
That's a minor.
so what the request is that they want to take a sentence and change the text of how that sentence reads. Now, I hear mixed reactions. One side says we're willing to further consider changing the words, and then I have another group that says, you know what, it's not going to happen. We've kind of set it in our ways. We've decided that this isn't something we're really interested in. You have to have an alternative text to send to the town council.
Right, so can't we get to that place and then send it to the town
Yes.
council and have the town council make a decision?
That's where,
Then it comes back to us to go to public hearing?
right, but you need to
And
get,
we still haven't voted yes or no on it, because we would get to that point after the public hearing, and then it has to go back to the town council.
but you gotta get a consensus on what the words are gonna say to refer to the town council.
So what do you need?
So Bill presented a proposed change in a particular sentence.
No,
No, not yet.
No.
That's coming next meeting.
No.
Is that coming on the
We're
night?
proposing to add a sentence to the plan of conservation and development that says that this property might be appropriate as open space.
So you need to decide whether you are in consensus with adding that one sentence.
I'd like to entertain it, I'd like it to come, that's what that sentence is, to come before us.
Okay, well then, that's something that you would continue your discussion at the next meeting or some meeting in the future.
Madam Chair, now.
He just told us.
Did
Did you bring up the POCD on there? Do you have it?
No,
Yeah,
They wanna change the.
It's getting late. Why don't I come back?
he wants.
Why don't
Wait, but I don't
I-
know what the verbiage is.
It's what he has in the,
My suggestion would be that
Adam version of POCD, number 8 on page 30.
I will take the sentence, I will take the pages out, and I will add the section in like.
Right, like
I
usually.
mean, I'd send it out to
Disseminate
you, and at the next meeting, we still have our work session, we will have a work session as a topic, and this will be initially.
This will be in there,
And,
okay.
from
Then we
there,
can
you
vote
can
it.
decide whether you agree with the sentence and how it's written, you wanna change it, you can. And if you all can come to a consensus, then we can package it together, send it off to the council in Prague, and we can, begin that 65-day referral process.
It's a lot of work like that.
I'll do it, John. I'll do it. You got enough to do.
I mean, it's similar to what we just did with chapter 9 and chapter 10.
It's gonna be on the agenda for the June 9th meeting, and we'll make a decision then.
Correct. And you're gonna craft what the verbiage is and with
I'll give you
within
a
the
handout.
regulations and
I'll
give
bring
us a
I'll bring a
handout.
full-size map of the property.
All that stuff.
If you guys wanna drive by it up there, you can, you know. I tell you, you can even drive in there, but you probably don't wanna do that.
That might be against the rules.
Alright,
It's kind of against the rules.
Okay,
alright.
If I can, I don't know, it's the last thing, that's a lot of man-hour work for a tax break.
It's not that, it's what's your plan of conservation does.
If she wants it to have a farm and she owns that 6 acres, it doesn't have to be classified a farm if she wants to grow vegetables or do anything that she wants to do with it. So in essence, getting it added to the POCD as an open space that's only usable by her, no one else, and just to claim that it's open space, gives her a tax break. That's it.
It does, but it gives benefits to the community. If you look at the language in your plan of conservation and development, preservation of open space can help protect community character, enhance the quality of life for residents, conserve important natural resources, provide wildlife habitat, provide fiscal and economic benefits, share development patterns, and preserve lands for recreational uses. I mean, it would clearly help protect the community character.
But she can do it right now without touching it.
From a work standpoint, I don't see it as any more than a simple application. I mean, yes, it's something that one could consider if you're dead set against it, unreasonable.
So let's get the regulation verbiage for the POCD presented to us on the 9th and then decide. Is that fair?
Yes.
And how about we just set a time limit in regards to how long, so you guys don't go on and on. We can set a half an hour period, and if you don't have a
We've
consensus
already
after that,
It shouldn't
hashed
take
this
that
issue.
long.
I mean, we need 10 minutes. We gotta start
Yeah,
to move it along, cause
exactly.
we gotta
Yeah.
work. We're working tired tomorrow. All right,
Sure.
Thank you.
thank
Okay.
you. All right, bills and communications.
same type of violations, except I gotta do some investigation in Willowbrook. That's one of the reasons why I was sitting here doodling
Right.
and coming up with those notes. That's the same issue at Willowbrook. We've got somebody that's got a little overzealous in making manicured landscaping where the buffer was. But a note similar to what I suggested would give me some leverage to say, wait a second here, this was intended, we gave you the benefit of a natural buffer, we gave you that benefit, you need to maintain it, or you gotta put in what's required for a
back.
buffer. So,
Seems like a theme in town. Everybody's busting into buffers.
I'm hoping that we can, that's the first step in finalizing and tying all this together. I'm still working on mainly getting that fence repaired on Norton Village. That's the #1 priority. Get that fence repaired. They had agreed to do that, so I'm going to push them. And Norton Park, as long as they're not using the area, it's not a violation. It might be unsightly in a sense, but it's not a violation.
Okay.
I think you guys, if we can move on to the minutes, I think you all got emailed late today with the minutes.
Yes.
I don't know if you had a chance to
I
review them.
looked at mine.
Okay, well, then we can move on from there then. I don't have anything to report on. There's been very little action lately from an application standpoint. The only question that I have is, generally speaking, you have one meeting in July and one meeting in August. I want to take one thing at a time. What meeting would you, from the recording with the town clerk, it was for both meetings, so I'm gonna cancel one and hold the next one. Which one do you want, the second or the fourth Tuesday?
What's on the calendar? It's the dates on the
Both,
calendar.
but the calendar has both dates.
Shouldn't.
Well, when I prepared the schedule for I included two meetings in all, on all.
It's
every
usually
month.
the first date that we meet.
Okay, so you want the first date.
Yeah,
Well, however, isn't it, I'm not here the first one in August.
So it's
Yeah, I'm
good.
not here the first one in August either.
So that's two
So
down.
let's see,
Sorry.
I mean, We can talk about August when we get closer to August. I'm really concerned about July only because we wanted to have that public hearing on the POCD in July. So
I'm here for
I need the majority of you to be here.
Let's do the
I
first
will
one.
not be here on the 4th. I don't think I'll be here on the 14th.
I'll be here for the first and the second, July, whichever.
I prefer the second in July.
That's the
Second meeting?
28th.
Yeah. It's coming right off Memorial Day weekend. I mean, 4th of July. It's the
No,
7th.
it's the 12th to the 14th,
Twelve.
I mean, it's far enough.
First, second
You're,
Tuesday.
I know
Second
that.
Tuesday.
Second Tuesday.
So you'll be all
It's the
right.
14th or the
You'll be
12th.
okay?
Yeah.
So we're just, you're just missing? Who's missing?
I'm here
On the
all of
14th.
July.
All right, Niku,
Still, we have
Niko's
our
probably
sub.
around.
We have our sub.
Yeah, I'm good for all meetings.
Okay, perfect. All right, so then we'll have a quorum. So we're okay for the first meeting in July.
Okay, so you want the 14th meeting?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Now,
Do we know for August? Does
well, I mean, you don't have to make the August.
I'm just saying,
right
like, 'cause
now.
then you can adjust it now. So
It's just gonna be a matter of canceling one meeting, that's all.
You know, other towns.
So, I mean, it's just canceling it. It's not a big
The way it
deal.
is.
It's just.
well, no, because there's two on the calendar, and we only need one. So we have to cancel one. So my point is, I'm not here the first
All
one
right, well, we'll cancel the first meeting in August.
in August and just do the second one. Is that okay?
No matter
And then it's just easier if I'm here sometimes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
All right, so first and second.
First and second, correct.
All right.
perfect.
With that, I think we've done all we need to do tonight.
Yes.
All right,
Madam Chair,
somebody,
can I ask a question?
you can ask a question, sure.
Sorry. I wish to beat the dead horse.
Beat it, go ahead.
Is there any way for us to know when it gets brought back and proposed to us, what actually, rather than just, in my opinion, hearsay, that it's $1,000 off? There has to be some more benefit than just $1,000 off.
We could ask that question.
And just the last statement to add to that is, if the person wants it to stay that way, then it doesn't give any incentive for them to want to bring it to a development. They want it to be this way.
Right.
And this is merely a savings of money. Because they want it to be a farm. They want to potentially have the ability to develop it into a farm or something of that
She
nature.
wants both in the middle,
People don't get.
technically.
And I don't-
We have to look at it from I think all angles and I think we have to look at it from all angles and I think we could talk about that more at the next meeting because I'm fried, I'm gonna be honest with you.
No, I understand. I just wanted to make that statement.
No, I think, I hear what you're saying.
There has to be more to it.
I think we need more details, maybe more details.
Mr. Galsky, but it's his point.
Right.
So him playing I'm a friend of the court is not, I'm not buying it.
Anybody have anything for John?
I just won't be at the next meeting, John, sorry.
Oh my goodness.
Nico will be here.
All right. Anything else? If not, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Thank you.